Welcome to But For Real, a variety show podcast co-hosted by two therapists who also happen to be loudmouth feminists. I'm Valerie, your resident elder millennial child-free cat lady.
And I'm Emerson, your resident chronically online Gen Z brat. And on the show, we'll serve up a new episode every other week that will take you on a wild ride through the cultural zeitgeist, mental health, and beyond.
You'll definitely laugh and TBH sometimes maybe cry a little because this is a silly and serious show.
Buckle up, my friends, and let's get into today's episode.
Hi, you guys. Welcome to 2025, officially.
New year,
because
same us.
I don't know. Yeah, same us. I don't know what day. No. I can't even remember what day this is coming out. But if you have not been formally welcomed to this new year, here we are.
No, we're the welcoming committee, actually.
Right.
We were at the front line.
Yeah, even if it's like
2025.
10 days late, whatever.
Well, sure.
It's fine.
I'm actually still stuck in the lawless land between like the intermediary days between Christmas and New Year's, where you just like have no idea what day it is, and like you're just I just ate girl dinner for a fortnight. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, a leafy green needs to be in my future.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I saw the question that you put on here, and I'm literally that person who's like, you know, at a house party meeting someone for the first time, and I'm like, so what are your hopes and dreams?
And they're like, well, I'm just trying to enjoy a drink.
Yeah.
So you're like, so do you have your vision board?
But
and they're like, no.
Emerson,
but literally.
What are your hopes and dreams for 2025?
My hopes and dreams for 2025. I don't know. I like to think in themes, right? Or like colors.
Sure.
Or whatever. And so I think like hope is kind of like the interesting word. Like we've talked about active hope in some of our previous episodes. And I don't know if it's hope, but I think 2025, like the word open settled nicely for me. I was like, I wish to find openness in 2025. So like within myself, a lot more curiosity, openness. I think that's kind of how I'm overall thinking about 2025 so far. Just want to be a lot more open.
I love that.
You know?
Yeah. You might have to dig into that open focus stuff, right?
It's been on the top of my
connecting
TBR.
With space. I love that. My word, and I feel like this is kind of perennially my thing that I need, is depth. Because I just, my natural default mode is, the metaphor that always comes to mind is like the dragonfly, like flitting around the surface, like touching a little bit of everything. And I'm like, girl, get the scuba mask, dive in, find your plumb line. So, I mean, I have to balance that with I'm going to be who I'm going to be. I'm not going to change that about myself, but I can find more depth within my little flitting around.
Beautiful. Some groundedness, some depth.
Exactly.
Yeah, think of your own theme for 2025.
Yeah.
And see what comes up.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now it's time for our first segment, Tea and Crumpets, where we tell you what we can't stop talking about this week.
I literally put immediately on mine being an iPad kid. Lol. I didn't get an iPad for Christmas, everyone. I've been having this iPad. But I got my iPad for my 21st birthday, so it's an older model. And I feel like I was trying to do the notes part when I was in grad school, and I just was such a pen to paper person. It just kind of wasn't working out. And I was doing my decluttering for the new year, and I found this damn iPad, and I was like, you know what? I wanna use this.
Yeah.
This is a nice expensive piece of technology. Let me use it.
Cool.
So I got onto GoodNotes and I did some goals. I was very inspired by our heroic workshop, by the way.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I kind of tried to follow, some of that. So I kind of thought of my year. I did some goal setting. I broke my life out into certain pillars. So I wrote social goals, relational goals, career, things like that, which is really tea because I don't do the goal setting New Year's resolution, which is all of what we're talking about today, which I'm pumped for.
Yeah.
So I just felt really inspired. I planned my project pan. I wrote my whole inventory of
what
things.
Is the project pan?
Oh my God. So that's probably going to be maybe one of the next things I talk about with Tea and Crumpets. But the basic with project panning is that it's really tying into the no-buy culture, mindful consumerism. Ooh. It's very much basically use the shit that you have before you go buy new shit.
Oh, I like it.
And use it in its entirety. Which is kind of like the no duh, right? But, hey, I'm easily influenced, so... Yeah. I have quite a few shampoos that I just, like, bought on top of each other because I convinced myself I needed 3 shampoos to rotate. I don't really know if that's true or not. My wallet says otherwise. But, yeah, so I planned out, like, I just wrote down all the inventory for certain things that I want to project pan. It's, like, beauty, skincare, body care. I have, like, a lot of, like, candles and wax melts that I want to, like, use. So I'm already feeling very satisfied with using my iPad as planning. I did a Pinterest collage for my 2025 vision board with my best friend Valerie. Have done some coloring. We're going to, like, do some reading together, like, on our iPads. We just, like, got inspired, girls. So kind of entering my iPad kid era.
And I can't wait to see what happens with this. But it's also... And I want to know the deep dive at some point for sure on a future episode on project panning.
Yeah, like, I think it's your gig. I have not even
heard of it. Mm-hmm. And even the iPad is an example of that. It's like using what we have and appreciating the things that we already have.
Absolutely.
Right?
I'm notorious for using a Post-it note. And that's a helpful system of mine. But also I'm like writing and like throwing shit away every day. Yeah. So I was like, girl, maybe try the iPad and like see what that's like.
Cool. Okay, my tea and crumpets.
What's your tea?
Is I'm finally watching Nobody Wants This. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh my God. It's so good. So people were raving about this show like, 3 months ago or something when it came out? Kristen Bell, Adam Brody.
Yep.
Adam Brody. I always get Adrian Brody. It's Adam Brody.
I think so, right?
Yeah, Adrian Brody's much older. Anyway. So the guy from, what was it, the OC? Mm-hmm. But yeah. Kristen Bell, I've been obsessed with her for like 20 years, since Veronica Mars. And it's feeling very meta right now because it's her and her sister are podcasters. And it's actually like sex and relationship focused, which is really cool. So it is worth the hype for sure. Cool. We still have a few episodes left. It's only like 10. Okay. And I think it got renewed for another season. So yay. But we love when we find a show that's just so good. And especially like it's what I've heard about this one is it's sort of like the kind of romantic plot line that even a lot of guys are like, nah, this is really good. Because it's so well written.
Well, sure.
So, yeah, Chris is watching it with me, and we are loving it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another show on my never-ending list.
TBW? To Be Watched? Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Okay. Cool. Nice.
All right.
Welcome to The Lore, where we share anonymous listener-submitted stories about literally anything. The more cringe or jaw-dropping, the better. To submit your story for a future episode, find deets on the gram at ButForRealPod or at GaiaCenter.co/podcast.
So this is a listener-submitted story. And this listener says, your recent theme of stress and anxiety reminded me of a mysterious physical situation that mystified me and my doctors back in 2018, and that I can only attribute to stress, but it was just so weird. In the mid to late 2010s, my work life was super stressful and demanding. I managed a center at a large university with a staff of over 20 people, and also had to tactfully manage up as I dealt with funders in Austin and a dean's office that was never quite sure what our center was funded to do. But that was easy peasy compared to family stressors, since I was the only in-state daughter of aging parents who lived 90 miles away. Dad was becoming rapidly more frail and confused with Lewy body dementia, requiring memory care, and Mom no longer drove after having totaled her last car. I was managing their finances and kept records of the times I had to make the drive back for various parent care needs in order to reimburse myself for the mileage. So I can look back at my records and count 29 of those 180-mile road trips between June 2017 and 2018. Early in June 2018, my husband and I took the Amtrak North to visit family in Wisconsin and Illinois. On the train ride home, I suddenly felt a weird tingling sensation in my fingertips and toe tips. Oh my God, not me, all over WebMD. It's just not. I'm dying. Please pull the train over. I must be immediately evacuated to the nearest emergency room. No, this listener said that by the time they got home, the feeling had gone away. But then over the next few days, the skin on their fingertips and toe tips went numb, then hardened into waxy callus-like stuff, WTF. In the next phase of weirdness, the calluses slowly started peeling off, started to spread to my palms and bottoms of my feet. Naturally, I saw my primary care doc, who was mystified, then a dermatologist, who was also stumped. They asked all kinds of questions about exposure to chemicals and such, but we came up with nothing. I never got a diagnosis, and the condition never came back. But given what was going on in my work and family life and the fact that my vacation was ending when this weird series of symptoms began, I suspect it was a bizarre immune reaction to stress. My body was telling me very tangibly that I needed to shed my skin and start anew. That's when I began investigating my options to retire, which I ended up doing 6 months later. Best job ever.
Wow.
Retirement, that is.
I mean, same. I'm already looking forward to retirement. Me, 25. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah. Bodies
crazy.
are so weird.
Well, and our body will literally be like, hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, hi,
Hey,
hi. You
hi.
listening?
And the doctors are like, well, we don't know. I'm like, okay.
Isn't it insane that,
Yes.
sometimes you'll read about these medical advancements. What did I see? One that was like, first baby cleared of whatever type of cancer using the nano knife.
I saw that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Right. So we can do that. And then we can have the most, regular shit happening. And they're like, I have no idea. No idea what's happening here.
They're like a topical cream. Never heard of it. A clindamycin. Never heard of it. I'm like, so what's going on? Well, listener, I'm so glad that you retired and living your best life.
And and that stress is
never returned.
Not coming back. I love that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And now it's time for the DSM. In our DSM, all varieties of dysfunction, spiraling, and meltdowns are welcome. In this segment, we break down complicated concepts and common misconceptions about mental health, well-being, and tell you what we really think.
So, in our episode for today, we're right in 2025, everyone. So, the hashtag NewYearNewMe culture historically is not working for the vast majority of people.
Correct.
The New Year's resolutions, la la la. So, let's talk a little bit about why it's not working and what can work instead if you, want to kind of slay this new year, in this new year kind of era, if you will. So, what's the deal with New Year's resolutions? I want to just give a brief, because for this episode, I was like, where did this even come from?
Great question.
Why do we be doing this?
I had no idea.
So, I plugged it from, I'm pretty sure it was history.com. Resolutions go way back to the ancient Babylonians. They have this 12-day religious festival, which actually took place in March, because that's when all their plants, crops were being planted. They left gifts and made promises to their god, or their gods, plural, that they would pay their debts and return any objects borrowed. Okay. So they were like, well, we kind of, need to get into this gig. So I was like, okay, the Babylonians work. And then, so I clicked from the Daily Journal, because I was like, what actually is the stats? What's going on? So based on a study published by Drive Research, 23 of adults quit their New Year's resolutions.
23%.
Oh my God, 23 adults. 23% of adults quit their New Year's resolutions by Quitter's Day. Also didn't even know what that was, by the way. And we both were like, Quitter's Day, which is the second Friday of January. This metric goes up to 43% of adults by the end of January. This study also found that 92% of adults will not follow through on a resolution. 3 in 10 Americans made a New Year's resolution in 2024. What do you feel about those stats?
Well, so I have an interesting add-on here, because this has sort of become cultural lore that
totally,
good luck with that resolution, right?
Yes.
LOL. But I read a really interesting book called, I think, Why We Change, or something about change, by Katie Milkman, who researches behavioral economics and change. Okay. There's a whole section about the power of fresh starts. And she talks about New Year's resolutions in that. And of course, sort of the failure statistics. Sure. But also, so it says that, I think her data might be a little bit different than this. Sure. But I think, let's say that 1 in 5 actually moves through with their New Year's resolution. That's still 20%. That's a good percent. A good chunk of people who are, utilizing the value of that fresh start, because she said that psychologically fresh starts. Now, it doesn't have to be a new year. It could be a Monday. It could be first of the month. It could be new semester. So there is research behind the value of fresh starts for like giving us that kind of momentum and making a change.
Sure.
But momentum is not the same thing as like stick with it ability, right?
Sustainability. Sure.
So, I do think there's power in the fresh start, but the fresh start alone, that's only going to get you started. It's not going to keep you going.
Yes. That I really love that you brought that up, because I think, this, when I was thinking of this episode too, I was like, I've like made the attempts. Like I've had the well-intended moments across my life where I've like sat down and written a list or tried to think of things and then, tucked it away in a drawer somewhere and, then was like, oh, I didn't do anything, because there was that fresh little container that first week. There is something to be said about the benchmark of a year and like how we can reflect on all of the things, like reflection and introspection is important, but it's looking at like what's sustainable and a little bit of willpower and, how we'll kind of go into the rest of this conversation. Yep. So I just threw down, like what is so overwhelming and attainable about all of this? I think we couldn't talk about like the myth of perfectionism, right? Like, how that often paralyzes us from jump of, okay, well, if I don't do the list perfectly or if I don't curate it in this exact way, really looking at these like hyper-specific things where, hey, it's not helping you. It's just creating a lot of like false expectations.
Too rigid.
Rigid. And it's not sustainable. And then just kind of looking at like external versus internal pressure. So like that external pressure, I feel like I could not get on any social media without everyone being like, and if you start 75 hard right now, you'll be a completely better person. And I'm like, no, sure. I'm not shitting on 75 hard. I'm sure people do that and like have great success and it implements lots of other different things. But it's just that like instant external push all the time of like, we do live in a like better yourself kind of culture. And the way that we go about the better yourself oftentimes isn't a lot of like internal introspection work. It's lots of capitalistic external things. 75 hard, but now I have to go buy gym equipment and then I have to get Lululemon leggings, and then it just kind of really is not on point. And just the general FOMO of not curating your entire year in the right way. Or I had somebody come through on TikTok and they were like, hey girl, it was this creator, I always forget his name, and he has OCD, and he's like, hey, for anyone on this app that has OCD, if just because you wrote your goals in a purple gel pen instead of a blue one doesn't mean that you've just doomed your entire 2025. And I just thought that was so sweet because I was like, I know there's people that are probably really sensitive to this kind of stuff and automatically thinking they fucked their whole year up already.
I didn't do it just right because one piece did not fall right into place.
And I'm not someone who identifies with like having OCD, but I do have a lot of just rightness because I'm neurodivergent. And so I already was kind of like, oh my God. So that message was really nice. So really looking at that external pressure where it makes things really unattainable, and then internal pressure. So the never-ending killjoy of self-comparison to social media, but also like the people in your life and just across your lifespan. Routines and systems that are just not attainable or sustainable. Setting your sights not too high, but just like way off the cuff. Like things that, if you want to start implementing a new daily practice and then you're like gunning for something so off the cuff, it's like, okay, well... almost self-sabotage. Like I wasn't going to be able to attain this anyways. Right. Yeah. Right. So just not having things scalable. And of course, I think probably the biggest, not having self-compassion when making or thinking about curating change in your life. And so that self-compassion piece is really most of the bread and butter for today. So when we're talking about self-compassion, or what we titled for today is compassionate self-discipline, bring us in. Tell us a little bit about what that even means, what that looks like.
So the phrase compassionate self-discipline I first encountered in this little book by Sherry Huber, who's sort of like a white lady monk person, nun. I don't know what they call themselves.
White lady monk.
She has her own little center. She's got some great
I love that.
books. They're like kind of a handwriting font. She's a little like, very creative. But she has a book called Compassionate Self-Discipline. And when I have since gone on the ye old internet and like Googled this idea, it's not out there a lot. If you Google it, you'll find some stuff from me, I think. You might find Sherry's book. But there's not a lot out there. And of course, there's more than one way of wording that. But why I'm so obsessed with it is I feel like there's a lot of talk, especially in recent years, around self-compassion and the importance of that. And again, we'll define that a little bit more. And there's also a lot of talk about discipline and hashtag no excuses. I mean, I literally, it might sound cliche, but like, no, it's out there a lot. I see it all over the place. And I'm laughing out loud at my own joke that I wrote on here. Nary the twain shall meet. And I was like, that's such a great phrase. So underused. So self-compassion and discipline. Nary the twain shall meet. And I think that they should.
Sure.
Because there's not a lot of places where we're really integrating and weaving those together. And I feel like both of them are so much more effective with the other half. So self-compassion and a lot of Dr. Kristen Neff's work delves deeply into this. But essentially, it combines 3 core elements of mindfulness because we can't really do shit if we're not aware of it.
Yeah.
Self-kindness. So how would you treat a friend? Can you treat yourself that way? And common humanity. Can we remember that we're all having the same fucked up, crazy experience here, right? So self-compassion, and that's sort of like, you know, giving yourself grace, being flexible with yourself, being like, yeah, I know that I said I wanted to get on my yoga mat for an hour 3 times a week, but you know what? This week is insane. So it's going to be 3 30-minute practices or whatever. Like it's giving yourself
adaptability.
Exactly. Flexibility, adaptability, grace. But then the discipline side, what is that? Because discipline I think of as the noun, not the verb. The verb is like kind of the ugly side of discipline, right?
Sure.
Although arguably, I think we all have to work on being the inner loving parent, which is another good kind of integration of compassionate self-discipline. And, you know, parents do have, let's talk about gentle parenting, gentle discipline, right? We need guardrails.
Sure.
So anyway, discipline, I say not just for the sake of it. Again, there's like the David Goggins and the, you know, super hardcore people out there who are like, you know what, I'm pushing myself because it hurts, like because it's gonna make me stronger. And like, yeah, there's some level of anti-fragility that I'm down for with that. But I will say, and I had a very humbling example of this week. I have gotten into this like online streaming platform called Inner Dimension. I've never been a power yoga person. I used to hate it. And so I would be like, I'm allergic to hot yoga. I'm allergic to power yoga. I don't want to work that hard when I'm on my yoga mat. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try. I'm going to become tougher. I'm running this Spartan race later this year. I need to strengthen. I need to whatever. So I need to just push through the hard thing. And so I've been doing some of these power classes. And then this morning, because I was like, I'm going to follow the recommended calendar and do 5 power yoga classes a week. So this morning I'm on my mat. I'm in the middle of class. I'm hating my life. And I'm like, where is the line? And I have been a home workout person forever. I know some people are like, I would never do that. I love it. And I rarely will end a class early. I will get through it even if I'm modifying. I left this class halfway through. And I was like, fuck this. Yeah. Because it felt like discipline for the sake of discipline. It felt like, why am I doing this? So I really want to make that distinction that this is discipline because we want to be committed to aligning with the things, the life that we want to build for ourselves, right? The person that we want to be. Recognition that our day-to-day actions or lack thereof ultimately create the life that we're living. So that's why discipline matters, is because if I have a vision, an identity, goals, dreams that I'm wanting to work toward, I cannot rely on like, oh, that sounds nice.
Right.
And then just hope that it happens, right? I have to bring a level of discipline to show up when I don't want to show up and not rely on motivation. I always say willpower, motivation, intention will be fickle, flaky little bitches. So you have to have your STS, your systems, your tools, your support. That's why discipline matters, because it's about, that's what will help us steer toward whatever you're defining as your North Star.
Sure.
So combining compassion and self-discipline. Okay, before I bring in an author that I love here, any thoughts that are coming up for you?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying I'm really glad that we're adding this part into this conversation, because I think it was maybe our last episode, I was talking about something and I brought up the word discipline, and I was like, this feels negatively connotated to me. And always has, because of my like nature and my neurospiciness. And I always think, and I've been told in different kind of places in my life that I like, that I'm not disciplined. Like when I did a lot of sports when I was young, and I was kind of like frolicking in the grass, and I had coaches being like, and you're not disciplined. And I'm like, hey, I'm 13 years old. And I'm thinking about Harry Styles. Fuck off. You know, I'm just like, what the fuck do you mean? And so, but yeah, I want to have a fruitful year. And I feel like this year is really important. I'm like coming out of like a lot of like personal stuff, and I feel like I've done a lot of shedding in this really difficult year of 2024 for me. And so I've been thinking about this word of discipline, and that I do want to challenge myself in some things. And also I'm like the PDA of it all, pathological demand avoidance, for any of my spices out there. But I'm like, I want to challenge myself. Also, me to me.
Fuck
Don't
that.
tell me what to do, bitch. So defining it, and then being able to think of it in a sisterly or cousin way with compassion, I think is maybe the first time I've thought, okay, maybe this is somewhat achievable.
Totally.
For me.
Yeah. And the adaptability of it all, right?
Yes.
That coming back to, I do want to commit to this like year-long sadhana of I'm on my mat every day. But that doesn't mean that I'm doing power classes 5 days a week. I can be on my mat doing whatever the fuck I want.
Sure.
Right? So
showing up.
It's showing up and allowing yourself to kind of co-create with what you're meeting in the world in your actual day, right? So there's this author, Brad Stulberg, who I love his sort of arc. I don't know a lot about him, but he's one that I'm like, I've always had on my eye of like, I want to delve into this guy's work. But anyway, he's a great Instagram follow. Highly recommend following him. Okay. He co-authored a book in 2017 called Peak Performance. Very like, success, how do the top performers do it?
Sure.
But then his sort of evolution, in 2021, he released a book called The Practice of Groundedness, a transformative path to success that feeds, not crushes your soul. Very compassionate self-discipline, right? Like, he doesn't use that exact phrase, but this book is very aligned with that.
Sure.
And he actually ended up, between those two books, like diving deep into a very severe OCD that he had never dealt with, and so got treatment for it. Like a very ACT kind of approach is what worked for him.
Nice.
And so I think even just knowing that arc of someone who's discipline, and then we see where that falls apart, right? So this was what he posted yesterday on Instagram that I was obsessed with. He said, the self-help industrial complex is completely unhinged, unhealthy, and out of control. You don't need to optimize everything. You don't need to be happy all the time. You don't need perfect skin or hair or abdominal muscles. These are unrealistic goals that make you miserable. It's an exhausting hamster wheel. Step off it.
Oh my God.
Right?
I'm going to follow.
I know.
Well, because the self-help industry is completely winning because they're like, hey, hate yourself.
Yep.
And here's all the things to do to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. And it feeds right into the consumerism loop and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, even if you're not buying products to try to improve yourself, you're buying programs, you're feeling like in some ways you are not enough. And that's, again, like the compassionate self-discipline obsession of mine is like, how do we honor that desire to keep growing? Because I think that is so human, right? And so beautiful of like working toward our ever unfolding potential.
Yeah.
But how do we do that in a way where we're not like the cat chasing the tail, like always striving for some unrealistic thing of perfection that we're never going to meet?
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. Intense. So another author who I love that has a couple concepts that weave in really well here, Jen Loudon. So she talks about whatever goals you're setting, whatever intention that you're setting, is it human scaled? And I mean that on a day-to-day basis and on a big picture basis. So back to that example of like, oh, I'm going to do this thing for an hour a day, whatever. Okay, does that fit into your life? Is it human scaled? Because if not, you are setting yourself up to fail. She also talks about setting conditions of enoughness. And this is not like you're only enough if you do X, Y, Z, but more like that there's a lot of things, especially in certain careers, whether it's creative, self-employed, like just you're less structured where you don't have a lot of like externally imposed clarity and deadlines.
Sure.
You kind of have to decide what is enough, like on any given day, on any given week, because if you don't, you're gonna be feeling like no matter how much you do, you could always do more. It's never gonna feel like enough.
Sure.
So I love that idea of, you know what, I'm gonna define working on this project for an hour today is enough. And I'm setting that condition of enoughness. It's human scaled. It fits into my day. And therefore, once I hit that, I mean, if I really want to keep working on it, anything else is icing on the cake because I've already hit that condition. And I love that idea.
This is so cool. The first time I ever heard human scaled was from us in conversation, I'm sure, when we did our Guided Together last year. And that was the whole thing that we talked about was like cultivating systems and supports for yourself and like with the goals, like moving away from the very stereotypical, like, write your resolutions, let's tuck it in a drawer, do nothing, and then hate yourself at the end of the year.
Just manifest it.
Yeah, I'm just going to manifest it away. And, like, I've done that shit. I've, like, written it and then done that, and I'm like, okay, I did that, and I've manifested anything. I was cleaning out my shit. I need you to know I opened my one that was 2022 going into 2023, and I was like, oh, nothing on this came true except me graduating my master's program. I was like, oh, because all of it was just outlandish, to be honest. It was just, like... And nothing that I currently valued, which I thought was a really interesting thing to be able to look back on. Wow. And so I was like, all of it was pretty materialistic and or, like, superficial. Yeah. Which I was like, oh, interesting. Also, I was, like, early 20s, so whatever. I've grown
so much.
But the conditions of enoughness that's really, like, tickled something in my brain hearing that because I'm constantly... pouring my cup out and being like, not enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing enough, and I'm like, well, I also haven't set the conditions.
Haven't defined what enough is.
No, and I see this a lot with clients. Well, I'm just not doing enough. Well, I'm just not good enough. Well, I'm not, and I'm like, okay, but so what is enough? Or I hear like, I'm not a real adult, and I started asking people, I'm like, so what is a real adult? Is a real adult something that you have in your mind that's completely outlandish? Yeah. Okay, so like, let's maybe scale what a real adult, which is you, and what that looks like in this condition of enoughness. Yeah. I'm feeling jazzed. I'm feeling...
I love this energy.
Inspired.
I hope y'all are feeling this through your ears right now.
No, seriously.
Just feeling this fired up energy.
Yes.
Because, but for real,
setting intentions and goals is cool. It's awesome. It's like really okay and great that you want to have intentionality throughout this year as long as they're done sustainably, compassionately, and scaled in your conditions of enoughness and really knowing what that is for you.
Love it.
And now, our musical segment. Now that's what I call Okay, where Emerson and I each share a song with each other each week as representatives of our respective generations. We tell you a little bit about the song or artist, and then we press pause, we share the song with each other, and then we come back for our live reactions. And we're capturing it all on a Spotify playlist linked in the show notes for you.
So what'd you bring us today?
So I wanted to bring us a Taylor Swift song, but, I don't have to give the introduction on Taylor Swift. Everybody be knowing, right? Like, girl, come on. But I picked New Year's Day because, I don't know, fitting for New Year's.
And I literally don't think I've ever heard it.
And I knew that you would have never have heard it. So I was like, okay, let me bring it. I don't know. I just love this song. Just, like, perfect one to kick off a new year. Just thinking about your memories. It's kind of like a love song in that way. So kind of like love song to myself, love song to the people that I love in my life. Being with your loved ones in the high and low moments. And yeah.
Okay.
T-Swizzy.
Give it a listen. Ooh, I really liked it.
Kind of different from some of her stuff, which is what I appreciate about her.
Yeah, I like I love songs that are super minimalist with the music. So, like, just the light piano.
Yeah, really beautiful.
And then that really haunting line, please don't ever become a stranger whose laugh I could recognize anywhere. Mm-hmm. Oh, just, like, gutting, whether you think of, like, an ex or an ex-friend. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, who comes to mind when you think of that? And even just in the listen through, I'm like, I'd, like, think of this song in, like, how I think of myself, too. Like, there's, like, moments of your life where you, like, feel estranged from yourself. And so I think that's been something that I've been really, like, looking at in this past year moving forward of, like, I don't really, like, want to be a stranger with myself much anymore, you know? And, like, I want to remember my laugh and, like, where I am and who I'm with and, like, with these people who may not have been, you know, I may not have brought certain people into my life in 2025, but, like, can cherish and know that they're there for that season and honoring my own seasons with my own self.
I love that. And it reminds me of the name of our women's group here at the Gaia Center, which we have several cohorts of, one of which you lead, called Coming Home to Yourself. And it's like, that's not a one and done thing, right? It's a sort of a lifelong process that we might end up steering more in that direction, and then we might steer away from it for a while, and then we've got to find our way back to ourselves. So, beautiful.
Yay.
Cool.
What you got?
Okay, so this is not like a millennial song, but it came out in 2016. I've been obsessed with it ever since I found it, and it really just captures the energy that I feel at the start of a year. It's called Yes and More Please by Fia, who is a Swedish musician. And there's actually not a lot about her online. She does have an Instagram, and she has a website with not much of a bio, but I found a little bio on her YouTube channel, and I was like, no wonder that I love this one. Because this is her bio. She says, in a world that is spinning relentlessly faster, Fia's music makes us stop and think, where are we going and why? Since the debut in 2016, Fia, who was raised in Stockholm and now lives elsewhere in Sweden, has explored humanity's relation to the physical, the earth we live on, and the psychological, what makes us discover hidden layers and new roads to explore within ourselves.
Exciting.
Okay, so this is Yes and More Please.
I love the guitar.
Right?
Ooh,
Also very minimalist.
Very. And, like, the chord progressions. Also, she's just beautiful in Swedish, of course. I'm like, okay. It made me think of, I totally got this from a TikTok, and it was, I think, maybe, like, a year or two ago. And it was someone that was just, like, you know, like when things are happening or, like, when something good in your life happens, like, say, like, thank you, yes, please, more. And so there's, like, few moments across the year where I've, like, you know, had something unexpected, or, you know, when something good happens and you think, okay, yes, please, more, you know, just, like, calling upon abundance, right, from the universe. And so, like, that, I feel like that just, like, perfectly, like, encapsulates that and, like, a nice, good energy of going into the new year of, like, yeah, I'm, like, done being small and, like, taking up space.
And connects really well to what we were just saying. Like, I am the love I've been looking for, knowing my heart is my home.
Yes, and please.
Yes. I love it.
And now for our last segment of the show, welcome to Fire Dumpster Phoenix. It is rough out there, y'all, and we need all the hope we can get. It's time to go dumpster diving for some positive news and rise from the leftover Happy Meal ashes together.
So my story that I brought, which was from the Good News Network.
I love them.
Always a good source for positive news, because you know what? There may be heavy shit happening out there, but there's also a lot of good shit. You just have to look for it. So I love the Good News Network. And this headline from Andy Corbley was just like, beautifully done. Okay, because it starts off saying, Minnesota summer camp for HIV-positive kids closes down. Because there aren't any more HIV-positive kids. I love that. So this campground is for sale, this 80-acre campground, because the owners were forced to close, and they're so excited about that because of the rock bottom rates of HIV infection among babies in the state of Minnesota. Wow. So the name of the camp was One Heartland, and it's just no longer needed because perinatal transmission of HIV has fallen to below 1% in HIV-positive mothers in the United States, thanks to antiviral medications, and has also declined globally. So this One Heartland camp was founded in the early 90s because this founder read about a 5-year-old HIV-positive child in Milwaukee who was facing isolation and stigma at school. And originally they used to rent space in different camps each summer, but he would often get rejected for health concerns. So they raised money, including from a former Minnesota Twins player and the manager, and bought this property and turned it into One Heartland, this guy, Neil Willinson. The kids came from all over the country and they got lots of donations and benefactors. And he said, or I guess this was a writer in the Minnesota Star Tribune said, there's no longer a need for the camp's original purpose is the greatest story that I could have ever imagined. It's something I could have never predicted. So cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think mine is also clipped from the Good News Network.
Love it.
And I saw that one and I was like, gonna put it. And then I saw you had it in the doc and I was like, we're funny on the same doc. No, that's really amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Just, like the dramatic, I love you even put dramatic pause. Because even when I read it, I was like, they closed it down.
Right?
Oh, they closed it down for good reason.
Yeah, I know. Good news is out there.
Yes. So I pulled one. It's this woman, she collects and reunites families with their photographs that have been lost to Hurricane Helene. So Taylor Schenker, I believe is how you say it, of North Carolina, was searching through the Shenandoah River, trying to recover her items from her friend's home that was like completely destroyed. And she's like going through like the river and debris and everything, and she just was finding photographs. And so she started a Instagram account at Photos from Helene, and she just posts them, and she kind of posts like around where she found it, or anything like that. And she's been reuniting families with like their photographs, which I think is really beautiful. Hurricane Helene was such devastation. Most of the major hurricanes that we've had across history have been, right, for a lot of people. People are still displaced because of Helene across North Carolina and, et cetera. And so she talked about, if families have moved out of North Carolina or out of the area, she'll gladly mail them, or if she can hand deliver them in person so they can reunite and have a hug. I think she put in the article. She was like, I just love to hug these people and reunite them with their photographs. She just said you take photographs to capture some of the most important and amazing memories across your life. And so to feel like all of that is lost in such devastation, it must be devastating. These are people's wedding pictures of their children, keepsakes, So she's collected over 100 pictures on her own. And then I think local law enforcement and everything, other folks have been helping bringing them to her. And she's been posting them to just try to get them back to the people they belong to.
That's
which I think is so nice.
Yeah.
Just didn't have to do that, right? But again, I love an unsung hero, I think.
Totally. And positive uses of social media.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. What a beautiful use of social media. Also, I had the thought that 50 years from now, that won't even really be a thing. Because everything's digital. Everything is digital. But they're people who are, our age now.
Yes.
We have keepsakes that have not been digitized. Yes. And it would be devastating to lose.
No, I think I got emotional thinking about it because I thought of the pictures that I have of my parents when they were kids.
Yeah.
That's not on a Google Drive. My parents are in
not
the early
yet.
to mid-50s.
You better be scanning it.
I know. I'm about to be put it in a Google Doc. But yeah, I was like, oh my God, pictures of my great grandparents, so really important stuff. So shout out Taylor Schenker. I hope I'm saying your name right, girl, but
very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's all we got today, guys.
Stay tuned for the next one, besties.
Stay tuned. Go be inspired. Love you.
Bye.
This has been another episode of But For Real, produced by Valerie Martin and Emerson Ryder and edited by Sean Conklin.
But For Real is a Gaia Center production. The Gaia Center offers individual, couples, and group therapy for clients across Tennessee and in person in our Nashville office, as well as coaching for clients worldwide. For show notes or to learn more about our work, visit GaiaCenter.co or find us on Instagram at The Gaia Center and at But For Real Pod.
But For Real is intended for education and entertainment and is not a substitute for mental health treatment.
Also, since we host this podcast primarily as humans rather than clinicians, we are not shy here about sharing our opinions on everything from snacks and movies to politicians and social issues.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode.
See you next time, bestie.